Hey everyone, today is November 24th, Friday. So, Brian, how are you, sir?
I'm doing okay. I'm wearing my Seahawks shirt despite their embarrassment of play that happened yesterday.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, what do you feel are common traits in top performers that don't disappoint people or fans, right? That you've observed in your career?
uh, it's not Geno Smith. Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm gonna get some hate from fans.
Are you gonna tell Geno Smith that, hey, Geno Smith, success is a decision, bro. Success is a decision.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. Back to the world of cybersecurity and business. Let's see. So you asked the question, what are common
How,
traits I've seen in top performers?
yeah. Like, what do they do
Um,
differently than everyone else?
it's a good question. I would say one of the first things that come to mind, and these might not be in order because these are not pre-planned. Um, One of the first things that comes to my mind is they don't say no. And it's not that you do everything. We've talked a little bit about this in previous episodes, but it's, if you come to me and you say, "Hey, can we do this thing?" And I think it's a terrible idea, uh, top performers will not just be like, "No, that's stupid," or "No, we don't want to do that," or "No, I'm too busy," or "No, whatever." Top performers will try and understand the ask. Now, you might have to do some prioritization there, and what you're being asked is priority 86 on a list of 114 things. And so you might have to then lead into a priority discussion about, is right now the time to do this thing? But I guess a way to think about that is they they find a way to do something rather than doing nothing. Uh, and there are different ways to articulate that. I talked last week about doing what you can with what you have. That's one way to think about it. Instead of saying, I don't have all the right pieces here, so I'm going to do nothing and just tell people I can't do it. I'm going to see what can I do with what I have. That's one way to think about it. Another thing that I've said a lot in my career is you will find an excuse or you will find a way. And so if you need to do something, you can achieve it or something close to it if you look for a way to get it done. If you look for excuses, guess what? You're going to find those. You're always going to find a reason to not do something if you look for excuses. So to me, that's one of the first things that come to mind. It's just it's a it's a can-do attitude. It's a bias for action. I don't want to just use cliches and buzzwords, but I mean that's what it comes down to. It's finding a way to get something done even when it's not perfect.
Yeah, no, that's good. And a quote I really like is the surest way to fail is to fail to act, right? So if someone's asking you for help or needing assistance and you're just like, you just ignore it, right? That's one way to fail. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. And oftentimes there will be a situation where you might need help from that person in the future, right? So you give and you receive, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I would say another thing that comes to mind is just the ability to read people. And this is something that personally I've said this. uh, I mean, for the last 20 years, working in corporate environments, I learned this pretty early on myself. I've when people ask what I do, and it's not just a passing conversation, I've always told people I'm a psychologist first. Like, I need to understand the people around me, understanding human behavior, how people think, and how those thoughts turn into actions allow you to build better relationships with people that then make for a better working environment where people are doing more of the right things. And so it on the surface, it's relationship building, but I think underneath that is understanding basics of human behavior. And this is relevant to any field that you're in. If you work with people, the better you can understand people and human behavior, the better you're going to do in an environment where you have to work with others.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Um, it is about the people, right? It's in everything you do, in the projects you take on, right? And because we've talked about this, right? Superheroes in cybersecurity. Sure, you can be a superhero, but you need a supporting cast around you, right? And how do you have that supporting cast? By reaching across the aisle, by saying yes when when it's within your purview to do so. Um,
Yeah, and I think, related to that, part of the challenge is like this is not stuff that's taught in schools. Like I
yeah,
never had a teacher or a professor come to me and say, "Hey, you want to be good at business, understand psychology." It was something that I I'm very analytical personally, and I look
mhm,
constantly at what's going on around me, and I'm asking the question, why is this thing happening? And what I realized pretty early on in my career was that human behaviors are very important to understand if you want to be successful in business, whether that's as an engineer, individual contributor, or a manager, director, whatever. If you want to be successful, you've got to understand why people are doing what they're doing. And then it was kind of a self journey of looking for books, and articles online, whatever I could find to educate myself on human psychology, human behavior. I read a lot of self-help books early in my career because a lot of those delve into how do people respond to things.
yeah. Well, and I think you also mentioned a really interesting thing about learning and reading books. In my mind, personal development is also critical if you want to become a top performer in your industry, right? And part of that is continuing education, right? You can't, there's this quote that a ship does not sail on yesterday's wind, right? You can't say, well, I got my certification or I've got my degree, I'm good. No, especially in cybersecurity, if you leave for more than 6 months to a year, you come back, it could be a significantly different field, right? I knew people who became exchange experts, in the early 2010s, and it's like, well, everything's online now. Like that expertise is no longer needed at most companies, right? Because that whole shift to the cloud. Um, Generative AI, right? Like the industry is moving in that direction as well. So I think continuously learning, being a lifelong student is so critical. And one of my favorite quotes that I've recently read by Pablo Picasso is, "I'm always doing that which I cannot do in order that I may learn how to do it." Right, and that's pretty deep because all of us deal with some level of imposter syndrome, and the way you overcome that is by doing, right, by acting. So
Yeah, that's a great point. Just especially in cybersecurity and in tech in general, like things are changing so fast. I think cybersecurity has it even worse in that you've got changes on two sides. Not only is the tech changing, but the way that people are attacking is constantly evolving as well.
yeah,
So it's, if you're like a software admin, you just have to keep up with what is the latest Salesforce change, and
right.
that's it, right? But if you're in cybersecurity, now you've got not only the software that you manage to keep your defenses up and the hardware and all of your tools that you have, you've got to keep up with that change. But also you've got all of the bad actors constantly changing and evolving as well in how they're attacking, how they're engineering these different entry points and what they're trying to do to actually get into your business. So kudos to all of you out there. Like it
Yeah.
you deal with some of the most change in cybersecurity than in any other industry. And if you don't keep up with it, to your point, 6 to 12 months, you're out of date. You don't know
Yeah.
what's going on anymore because things have evolved.
Yeah, especially when you consider that your attack surface could be the entire world, right? Most companies can be attacked from countries anywhere across the ocean, right? It doesn't have to be like local, like traditional crime. It's like you see the bank robber robbing the bank. Well, that's the same thing, but on a global scale now. So with things like ransomware and phishing, social engineering, etc. So cool. So common traits in top performers, two of them, Brian, you mentioned saying yes to opportunities, right? Or figuring out a way to say yes and right to kind of potentially push it into the future if you've got other priorities, and then personal development and learning. Anything
Now,
else?
I want to be clear, just because we've had this discussion before as well. I'm not suggesting you say yes to everything. People have terrible ideas. People want to do things that are just way wrong and not the right way to do things. So it's not a matter of saying yes to everything and everybody. It's a matter of hearing a request and figuring out how do you help that person progress in the right way, in a way that makes
Right.
sense for your environment, your priorities, and the things that your business is trying to do, which is different than saying yes.
Yeah.
It's not saying no.
So it's being
It's
collaborative.
collaboration is a big part of that, but
Yeah.
and I go back to, I think, to try and summarize it, it's looking for a way, not looking for an excuse, looking
Yeah.
for a path forward, whether that's doing exactly what somebody's asking of you or helping them see there's a different, better way to do it. But it's not putting up a wall and just saying, no, I can't do that. No,
Yeah.
we're not going to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks for those good tidbits, Brian. And you have a great weekend. I think this does it for today's stand up.
Sounds good. Take care.
Take care. Bye.